You should make that Goodbye Volcano High video like you said you would. Come on. The game's been out for almost 4 months. You can't keep people waiting. Are you really going to let the French Canadians win here? After what they did to your
Oh, for fuck's sakes, fine. I'll make the goddamn video. I'm not actually that angry. Don't worry. So, 4 months later, and I'm finally getting around to making this video. I wanted to do this far earlier, like closer to when the game first came out, but I had to take care of other responsibilities at the time, such as personal matters I was dealing with, as well as finishing my fic Bad Apple. But now that that's done, I can finally get around to making this video. Yay. But I've been wanting to make this video for a while now, and so yeah, Goodbye Volcano High has been out since the end of August. God, it's still weird to say those words, now that it's actually out. And now that, since I've had the chance to play it twice now, 2 times when it first came out, and once now because my hard drives crapped out on me and I had to re-record all of my footage, I wanted to give my 2 cents on the matter. So, do I like the game, and do I recommend getting Goodbye Volcano High? No! It's definitely disappointing, but it's not completely horrible. So, let me explain and give some backstory to Goodbye Volcano High. For the 5th fucking time. To save us all some time, I'll sum it up like this. Sony announces the PS5 in 2020. They managed to trick people into thinking they have games. One of them is Goodbye Volcano High. Yes, it's on Steam, but shut up. Many people didn't like that a DeviantArt tier scaly game is shown on the same stage as Ratchet and Clank Demon's Souls, and of course the greatest game of all time, Forspoken. And there were some other douchey reasons as to why people didn't like the game, mainly people being transphobic, and but the general main consensus was due to the game's at the time unappealing art style, and the character designs in it felt really out of place compared to the rest of what was shown at the event. And what's next? The internet's toilet 4chan fell in love with the game's protagonist and made Snoot Game, a parody visual novel of the game that's actually really well written and heartfelt, becoming like one of the next Katawa shoujos, which I'm also playing right now on my Steam Deck, and it's awesome. GVH suffers a myriad of different delays, ranging from COVID, the former writer being a nonce, them molding over Snoot Game, and other various issues behind the scenes. However, after about 3 delays, the game manages to finally come out on August 29th, 2023. And the 2 demos of the game were interesting?
We got an audition. For Battle of the Bands.
That's all I could say. And it had some issues, but they thankfully kind of fixed those issues. But the rest of the game, however, well, yeah. So while I initially viewed GVH with not the most pleasant of opinions, after I played its fan game, if you want to call it that, Snoot Game, actually, it made me more open to giving GVH a try. And at the time, I was honestly more interested in checking it out than Caveman On's new upcoming game, I Wani Hug That Gator. But that was until I played the demo for both games. But I gotta say, for when I finally played GVH, I was disappointed. Well, more accurately too, I was disappointed when I read the game's script. Especially when they fucking left it in the game's files when they released the second demo! Like, literally how? I gotta calm down. But yeah, like I said, I'm trying to keep an open mind when I wasn't expecting much, but I was still let down all the same. But I guess I can start with some of the issues that I have with the game. So, first up, let's talk about the story. So Goodbye Volcano High takes place on this version of Earth where everything looks like what our world would look like, but instead of human beings roaming the land, we now have dinosaurs. Just kidding, Canadians aren't real. But let me give you a quick rundown of the plot. The game starts at a bonfire on the beach at night, and if you guys remember seeing the reveal trailer for the game back in 2020, this area may look familiar, and they're still debating on whether or not to burn the school's last ever yearbook because book burning is still in fashion, right? And you're given the choice as Fang between dropping the book into the fire or keeping it. But I'll tell you right now, what you choose doesn't fucking matter, because when you revisit the scene later in the game, Fang burns the book no matter what you choose in the beginning. Like, what the fuck was the point of even giving me that option? How hard are you trying to be like Telltale? Fuck. Okay, moving on. And then the game goes back in time 8 months before the end of the world as school starts up again, and Fang and their AI-voiced brother Nasser— I will give the game thanks, by the way, for telling me how to actually pronounce his name, because all this time I've been saying Naser. Anyways, and throughout those 8 months, you get to experience life through Fang's eyes as they work to get their band Worm Drama a spot at Caldera Fest, while also struggling with the impending meteor coming to kill them all, while also maintaining their relationships with their friends. Kinda. Except it doesn't feel like 8 months, because the passage of time is so fucking unclear in Goodbye Volcano High. I mean, let me give you guys a brief summary, like, even though I already said that. This game is split into 8 chapters, which they don't even let you choose from. If you want to replay a specific chapter, you have to play through the entire game again. So, after the beginning of the whole bonfire and everything, we go back 8 months into the past to see Fang ready to go back to school, now entering senior year at the titular Volcano High, while at the same time preparing to take their band to new heights by competing in the Battle of the Bands, a music contest that will result in the winners playing in Caldera Fest, a music festival taking place in the game's setting. However, when they do finally get to school, they notice that some strange things have been happening with everyone's phone, as well as having like, their phones
Honestly,
having weird signals, and the school bell acting more glitchy than my GPU gets sometimes when I install a new driver update from Nvidia. Like, I don't care if this update makes Lords of the Fallen run slightly better, or give it DLSS 3 to Warzone. I just want to be able to use Chrome without my monitor looking like a checkerboard. And the following evening, Fang watches the news and learns that these technical difficulties are the result of an asteroid that's headed towards the Earth. On top of trying to make their band go big as well as finishing high school, they now have to worry about the possibility of the world ending. Oh! And on top of that, Fang gets a text from an unknown number who confesses their feelings for Fang, with no further explanation as to who they are or why they're sending this anonymously. Totally not fucking creepy at all, right? But anyways, with all things considered, do all of these trials and tribulations change anything? Well, I mean, not a whole lot, honestly. Everybody pretty much continues their business as usual, preparing for Battle of the Bands, dealing with school stuff such as the yearbook photos, preparing for college, and Fang hanging out with their friends, and the player is given the option to choose what Fang says at times, and depending on what you say, this can increase your affinity with any of the main cast. Anytime you say the right thing, a card appears in the top left corner, but who does it indicate the affinity is for? Good question! Just go to the main menu and look at the chart with all the characters and hope for the best. But I will say, some of the conversations and scenes are pretty decent and well written too. Like, I thought the scene where Fang and Sage open up about their transitions were really well written and executed, and the scene where Fang and Reed talk about the meteor and their fears about it, or the argument with Nasser and Fang where Nasser opens up about the pressure he has to deal with. He also does this again on the beach, and like both of these scenes where Nasser were really good, and this isn't unlike another Nasser that comes to mind. But moving on. And then there's 3 segments throughout the game where Fang and the gang play Legends and Lore, the settings version of Dungeons and Dragons, where the party fights in a campaign against Sephiroth. Wait, is that a Nautiloid? Wait. Nautiloid. The tentacles. Wouldn't that make you gay? I'm just kidding. It's actually not that entertaining or exciting. I mean, the L&L segments are a cool concept, and I like the art direction here. Like, probably there are times where I like it more than the actual game itself, and the character designs are cool and all, along with the background art, and the references are nice, except for the Berserk one. What the fuck is a Gunce? Jeez, I don't even want to know what a frenzied version of the eclipse is. The animation here is far smoother than, you know, the entirety of the actual game. However, I feel like this part of the game would have been better as its own thing, since it doesn't really serve anything to the plot for the most part. The only exception is the dark endings that Reed gave the last 2 sessions, showing how much the incoming asteroid is bothering him and how his way of coping is through hosting these sessions of LNL. But beyond that, like, this doesn't really add much to the game. And let's not talk about the dialogue, because if you thought Borderlands 3 had bad dialogue,
Each footstep becomes more and more difficult as the mud under the water sucks on your feet. And then...
Ew, no, gross. That was uncalled for.
Reed, is there an HR department I can talk to?
yeah. Although Fang's character has a scythe, and that's super based, so it has its redeeming elements. But moving on. Eventually, around Chapter 5, Fang and their band Worm Drama finally play in the Battle of the Bands after months, or days, I don't know though, of preparation. They're finally ready to blow LJ's socks off and put those fucking stupid bastards I'm gonna simp, bros. I'm gonna simp. Sorry, I mean, they're gonna put Swamp Babies in their place. And here, Worm Drama's rival band, Swamp Babies, are their main rivals. They're bad because, yes, they're bad. Okay, get it? Okay, moving on. So Fang and the gang manage to win the Battle of the Bands even if you don't press a single input. However, Fang gets into a huge fight with Trish because Trish wants to take some time away from the band, much to Fang's anger. More on that later on. And then it's revealed that Fang's secret admirer is none other than Naomi, who asks Fang to step outside the cafe into a dark alleyway to meet her, right? Isn't that romantic? And now, all of a sudden, people take the meteor seriously! Now, 8 months have passed? Anyways, the school is trashed, and yet there's people still there having assemblies, and then they have the other LNL session. And then, feeling alone, Fang decides to invite their friends for a hangout session on the beach. So, like, this is the scene that you saw in the prologue and the reveal trailer, and everything's nice, but it's kind of tense, especially between Fang and Trish, as you can kind of see from the dialogue. And then Fang gets a message from LJ who tells them that Caldera Fest is cancelled because the apocalypse might have an impact on ticket sales or something. Fang is upset by the news and tells their friends this, and Fang's weirdly at peace with it. However, Naomi is more upset and proceeds to lash out on everyone at the beach until Fang says,
Oh, fuck off, Naomi.
and then Fang was treated like they're the one at fault, particularly by Nasser, although Sage defended their actions. You know, despite all the shit Naomi was saying, and then the player is given a choice as to who to talk to on the beach, and this is where shit gets infuriating. Remember how I said you can raise your affinity with certain characters through dialogue choices throughout the game? This is the part of the game where it matters, because let's say, for example, if your affinity isn't high enough with Rosa, you can't talk with her. And back to when I played the game at launch, both times, mind you, and then now, it's still... The first 3 options are with Sage, Stella, and Rosa, and it only lets you choose one of them per playthrough. And this is especially bad for people trying to get all the achievements, meaning if you don't want to do any black magic and back up your saves or go into the game's files to change things, if you can even do that, you're gonna need to play through the game 3 times to interact with those characters in your playthrough. This is especially hard with Trish, speaking of, because you need to have an extremely high approval rating to see all of her scenes, and from what I hear, this is what a lot of people struggled with, myself included. Even when you pretty much choose any dialogue option that was nice to her, but if you choose one wrong thing, then you have to play through the whole game over again until you get it right. Just, what the fuck? Okay, so back to the topic at hand. The conversations Fang has with the other characters here are actually nice. Like, this is one of the better parts of the game. So Rosa opens up about the trouble she's facing at home with her family, about her transition. Like I said with Sage, he's opening up about his existential fears, particularly wondering whether or not if him doing what he loved was a waste of time. Like, I like these scenes a lot, except for with Nasser opening up as well, although him kind of giving Fang shit for something Naomi did was kind of uncalled for. Fang and Trish finally bury the hatchet and make up, and then the conversation with Naomi, where Fang apologized for what they said even though Naomi was the one who blew up on them. And then they make up, and then Naomi reaffirms her feelings for Fang and wants to know if Fang feels the same way. And then the player is given a choice. And you know, this probably would have been a really nice and compelling scene about their romance if, oh, I don't know, if she didn't start flirting with Fang in the worst fucking way possible.
I have a massive crush on my best friend's sibling, but my interactions with them are kind of sparse, and I accidentally tend to say weird things to them, like I don't see them as the type of person to go to college, and I'm too scared to tell them how I feel. What should I do? Oh, I know. I'll find out what their number is and begin sending them messages anonymously while refusing to reveal my identity until I do finally find the strength to tell them how I feel, and I'll have them come out in a dark alleyway so I can tell them.
Like, am I the only one who sees how fucking unhinged this sounds? Okay, I don't want to make too many comparisons to Snoot Game when it comes to story here, because the two are vastly different games aside from the characters being used, but let me explain it to you in this way. So imagine if in Snoot Game, right, Anon barely talked to Fang aside from a handful of interactions, and instead of letting their relationship grow naturally, he begins sending anonymous messages to her, telling Fang that he likes them. And this is, like, you see how creepy that would be? But yeah, this is probably one of my biggest gripes with the story, and especially when the game gaslights you into thinking this is a healthy way to build relationships, and by not giving you the option to say no to her advances. Even if you friend zone her, it still forces you to hang out with her, and the only time the player is able to say no to Naomi's advances is during the scene I was just talking about at the bonfire, which is the friend zone option. But for a game that tried to emphasize choice before release, I feel pretty restricted here. Oh, and this isn't even the best part. Speaking of, let's talk about the final chapter. The chapter where the meteor is going to crash into the earth any day now, and Fang decides to follow their dream and hold their own Caldera Fest at Volcano High, and it seems like pretty much everyone else is okay with abandoning their dream for the sake of Fang's dream. And they managed to have a concert on the rooftop of the school, giving me PTSD flashbacks of the last time I played a game with dinosaurs that had an ending on a school rooftop. Anyways, right as they finish their first song, the game ends as they play Reprisal as one of the songs earlier. And the game, it ends. It doesn't show if it doesn't show the impact or if it missed. It just ends. I mean, yeah, ambiguous endings can be pretty good at times. Just look at Final Fantasy VII's ending. And yes, I know Advent Children is the thing, but still. Yeah, there was just so many issues I had with the game's narrative. And then there was like all the other questions I had too. Did Trish really leave her little sister all alone at home while the world ends? Why were Fang and Nasser's parents on vacation for 8 months? And why is the passage of time so fucking unclear and inconsistent? Like, seriously. All of these chapters feel like they're almost happening back to back, so one would safely assume that the events of the game are taking place over the course of, let's say, I don't know, a month. And even though one of the signs in the earlier chapters says it's now April, even though it feels like only a couple of days have passed, why would Reed host a 3-session D&D campaign scattered over the course of 8 months? Like, did the game just decide to skip several months and not tell us? Did the game just decide to flash forward 7 months after Battle of the Bands? What the fuck is happening here? And it's such a mess to follow. Like, I feel like one way they could have done this differently is if they had something like montages or recaps of what happened in between, like after the Battle of the Bands audition, they could have shown us what Fang and the gang have done to celebrate, or what their life was like in between stuff and all that. And in the 3 years leading up to the release, they kind of hinted that everyone would die and that, you know, the world would end since the whole meteor thing killing the dinosaurs. And there were people that said, then what's the point of even playing the game if we already know what's gonna happen? And I'll admit, I was one of those people for a little bit. But then I thought, you know, it could be a nice story. Trying to make the most out of uncertain times. Knowing that how much you got left doesn't matter, just as long as you're able to find happiness and pursue your goals. But that's not really what we got here. And also, can I just bring this up on a side note? Goodbye Volcano High is one of those games that was marketed as having a majority of the cast identifying as LGBT. And then all of them died at the end. What did co-op mean by this? But all in all, the game's story is an absolute clusterfuck of a mess. And I mean, I know they had to rewrite the game several times, one of them because they had to let go of their old writer due to some questionable content she previously wrote for Kotaku. But still, it really leaves a lot to be desired. And now we're talking about the characters! Here we go. So, starting with the main protagonist, we get to experience this glorious and breathtaking world that we learn almost nothing about aside from Caldera Bay, because world building is non-existent, but whatever, through the perspective of Fang, a pterodactyl musician in their final year of high school who's finally figured out what they want out of life, and they will bring their band to glory with the incredibly unique aspects such as using double bass, shit, wrong game. But to get to the point, I'll just put it like this. Fang just isn't really a likable protagonist. Like I said, Fang's figured out what their dream is, but do they give a shit about the dreams of others? I mean, it sure doesn't feel that way a lot of times. From the first chapter we're introduced to Fang, we get the feeling that Fang thinks that the world revolves around them. Fang knows what their dream is, and their dream is to continue to play music and make it big with their band. But that's all they really seem to care about. For example, Fang doesn't really seem to care about Trish's growing passion for entomology, and they're especially upset with Trish when she decides she wants to take a break from the band and continue following her passion for entomology and figuring out what they want to do, especially as the world ends. And then when they win Battle of the Bands and Fang is dead set on taking the band to Caldera Fest, Trish has to reaffirm her desire to do what she truly wants to do rather than what Fang wants them to do. And while Fang does take an interest in Reed's love for L&L, that isn't until after they're roped into playing. And they also mock Nasser for being uncertain with what he wants to do and seems almost apathetic to the pressure he finds himself under. So Fang pretty much doesn't give a shit about what other people want as long as it coincides with what they want. Like, am I supposed to sympathize with this character? Like, what the hell? Granted, Fang does have some compelling moments as well, particularly when they see the way they've been treating others later on in the game, which doesn't really offer much when everyone's content to just abandon their dreams to help them with Caldera Fest. But their scenes with Sage and Rose in particular are actually pretty nice in the sense where we see a rare moment of Fang trying to care about someone other than themselves. And granted, they do get better throughout the game and they come to realize they shouldn't be so self-centered but, you know, this would be more compelling if it wasn't in the last 30 minutes of the game. Raptor Jesus help me, but maybe I'm being hyperbolic, but regardless, Fang didn't really leave a good impression during the 3 times I've played this game. This is 3, not this. And now the supporting characters. Naomi is... well, yeah, what I said earlier should kind of give you a hint of how I feel about her. I mean, she can be really nice though, and I like her friendship dynamic with Nasser.
So what's the deal with Miss Robot Frog and Nasser? Are they a thing, or...?
Do they know? Are they gonna get bad fit? And then there's the 2 deuteragonists, Trish and Reed, and I'll start with Trish first. You know, despite my first impressions, seriously, what the fuck is this? And joining Fang is their best friend Trish, who... What the actual fuck is this thing? She's the kind of friend who would not only stick up for you in a fight, but would also chase down your opponent afterwards and, yeah, no. Yeah, no, this is all crucial information about Trish, right? It's not at all just some poorly disguised fetish. I've actually grown to like Trish. Not only because she reminds me of a certain green-haired weeaboo, but with bugs. I actually quite like her design, and her character actually seems a lot better than I initially gathered from the demos. Granted, her dialogue leaves a bit to be desired.
Or should we throw off the shackles of capitalism and bound into a life of freedom and hedonistic self-indulgence?
Or the time she was a dick for no reason and brought Mango to photo day and said, you know, so Mango could say, "It's mangoing time!" and Mango all over the school's equipment, possibly ruining it. But other than that, she is definitely one of the more relatable and in-depth characters of GVH. Her friendship with Fang was definitely a good one to see, and I like how, while the 2 are very close, at the end of the day, they have different goals in mind, and while Fang is content to stay and do what they're continuing to doing, Trish wants more out of life and wants to try new things and do what makes her happy, and it's hard for her to do so because she's afraid of ruining her relationship with Fang, which is why she seemed to struggle with bringing up to Fang what she truly wants to explore, until it hit a point where it almost seems like she was beginning to resent Fang for not listening to what she wanted, which I think is pretty understandable. And I will say, if there was anyone that they had to replace Naomi with any other character as a fuck, I gotta try this again. I will say though, I think if they had to replace Naomi with another character for a romantic interest, it should have been Trish, since she and Fang had a lot more chemistry together in their interactions, and they made it seem like in the reveal demo that she was going to be the main romance option in GVH. At least that's what I got from the trailer. And Reed. Let's talk about Reed. Reed's a decent character too, and I will say that the writers did a pretty good job at creating a character that masks their fear and existential dread with sarcasm and humor, or how he uses his passions like L&L as a way to cope with the incoming apocalypse. And Mark Whitten as Reed is probably my favorite performance out of all the voice actors, especially during the last 2 L&L sessions, where even as he tries his best to narrate what's happening to the game's world as DM, you can just hear the despair in his voice as it escapes the mask of nonchalance that he's tried to put up as the world ends.
The light winks out. For an eternity, everything is quiet. You hear the roar now, and your world explodes in pain. It's so hot. So inescapably hot. I want it just end. What I do know is that the world you left behind was saved. People will live and die happy lives, in peace, because of what you all did. They won't remember you, or even know you existed, but they'll be there because of you. Beyond that, though, I'm not sure.
As for the other characters, so Nasser is, well, very much like how Snoot Game was able to portray Nasser, which is not a bad thing at all, because I thought his Snoot Game version was really well written too. But I feel like there's something missing about Nasser in this, and I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it feels... he doesn't seem as compelling as at least compared to some of the other characters, where, like, yeah, well, there's the scene where he opens up about the pressure he feels and how he can't do whatever he wants, like, kind of revealing his jealousy towards his sibling being free of their parents' expectations, which this is, like, only brought up 2 times, and it's not really shown, whereas in Snoot Game, it's talked upon and shown as well, from passing out from exhaustion in one scene to having a panic attack in the next scene. Now, I'm not saying GVH should have done the exact same thing, but it would be nice to, you know, show, don't tell, rather than just talk about it once, but never really kind of show it through his character, if that makes sense. And then, right, these characters. Well, I guess I'll talk about Rosa first. I mean, Rosa's nice. She's got a nice design, her voice acting could be a little better, but it's alright in some areas, but she's just kind of there. Like, it feels like Rosa is only really there to be part of Fang's conflict with Trish, where she begins to drift away from them. And then we have Stella. First of all, what the absolute fuck is this monstrosity? Just, who the fuck looked at this and said, yeah, this is good character design. A bunch of unpaid weeaboo weirdos on a Yugoslavian snow shoveling forum made a better design than this Stella. You had it right the first time with the concept. Why the fuck isn't she wearing shoes? Is Dan Schneider in charge of the character design? Yes, it's okay, baby. It's okay. I'm just getting mad over video game characters. It's okay. But aside from that, it's kind of the same issue Rosa had, where she's just kind of there. And then there's Sage, who just makes me want to jam scissors into my ears.
Who is that? Do we know them?
Basically, all the criticisms I've had up to this point, with voice acting, dialogue, characterization, is dialed up to 9 with this character. Like I said before, I really liked 2 scenes he had with Fang and thought they could be a good way to characterize him and add some depth. But every other scene with Sage is basically what would happen if you get a squirrel with the personality of an internet scene kid and give them meth. Guys, he likes cooking, and he's overly excited! You can laugh now. Alright, but funnily enough, aside from Trish, one of the other characters that stood out to me was LJ. I really enjoyed the layers her character had, where she had a tough front, but at heart, she was a good person, and she genuinely wants the people that perform for her to succeed, and gives some pretty good advice for Fang and their band, and basically, she is a good take on the whole mentor figure, and she's able to get Fang to pull their head out of their ass. And some of the other issues I had with the game are all the bugs that were plaguing the game when I played it, and the super inconsistent voice direction and audio mixing, especially when it comes to the facial animations not fitting the way certain lines were delivered. On the topic of animations, all of the reused animations that you see most characters do whenever they talk or do something, it gets really tiring after a while. And bear in mind, the issues that could be fixed, like the bugs and the audio mixing and whatnot, it's still there. Like, I get that they've released updates that have supposedly fixed this since then, but there's still a lot there when I recently played the game. But honestly, it's not a complete disaster, because there's actually a few things about this game that I really enjoyed. And, like, for one, some of the art in this game is really good. Like, it's pleasant, it's nice detail, like, particularly the art direction with the background art is insanely good, and there's some designs I also thought were really good, and sometimes the character designs can be but sometimes they can be pretty good. It's like an acquired taste, but I think for the most part they did a good job with the art. For the most part, again, heavy emphasis, and the music, okay, yeah. I'll just say this, the soundtrack is god tier. Like, I really enjoyed the soundtrack for Goodbye Volcano High, and it definitely blows Snoot Games out of the water. although that's not really a hard feat to accomplish since, you know, how the composer, if you want to call it that, of Snoot Game pretty much stole a bunch of songs, some of them being like copyright free, some of them being like straight up rip-offs of others' work, and claimed it as their own or whatever. I mean, I still liked it, but still, it's not that hard to be more talented than Snoot Game's composer. You know, I typically listen to a lot of heavy metal or rock music, but there's definitely times where I really enjoy listening to music that's more so on the chill side. So I can safely say that GVH definitely scratches that itch. For a game with a story that's pretty forgettable, the music is anything but. Reunion, Constellations, Pretty Heroes, Don't Call on Me, all of them are really enjoyable songs, and I also really enjoyed the song Won't Forget, and it probably felt like the most emotional out of all of the tracks. But my personal favorite is probably Can't Get Out. This is the song that plays during the montage that plays right before Battle of the Bands. It's catchy, energetic, and the melody is just really pleasing to the ears. And also, fun fact, it was one of the songs that you could play around with and create on their website back then, although I'm not sure if it's still there. And the musical rhythm sections can be pretty entertaining at times, although I wish that there was more, I don't know, like, I kind of wish that you could fail them. Like, you can pretty much go about an entire song and miss all the inputs and have no consequence. Like, let's say, for example, during the 2 songs that you have to play through Battle of the Bands with, like, you can not press a single input and you'll still win. Like, how the hell did Worm Drama win instead of Swamp Babies in that case? Well, all in all, Goodbye Volcano High has been one of those games that have been at the back of my head for a while now, and then after the parody Snoot Game came out, I decided to open up my mind a bit and give the game a chance, and while I did even play through it multiple times, one of them, you know, being because my hard drive crapped out on me and I lost all my gameplay footage, the game still felt like a disappointment and a wasted opportunity, and I feel like they could have done so more with the story, and I feel like they played it too safe, and the majority of the characters had like inconsistent writing at best, and not to mention the bug fest that the game was even after all the patches, but it had some redeeming elements such as the music elements and some, again, emphasis on some, of the art. But overall, if I had to give a rating of the game, it would probably be like a 5 out of 10. It's sad to say, but it's my honest truth. And I definitely wouldn't buy this game at full price, or even launch price like I did. But I mean, if I can't really take the moral high ground because I've bought Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and Diablo 4. But if you can get it for pretty cheap, and if you're on PlayStation and it ever decides to drop on PS Plus Extra, then it might be worth giving a go. But I am curious to hear what you guys have to say about the game. Let me know down in the comments whether you enjoyed the game, or you hate it, or you're mixed on it, or you think I'm a piece of shit for making this video. Anyways, it's been a pleasure, and I hope to see you guys again soon. I love you guys. No, I'm not gonna do that. And Umbruhh out.